Welcome to Planet People, a podcast that aims to inspire curiosity and cultivate a deeper connection with the natural world.
We are thrilled to be sharing stories with you that highlight the beauty and importance of protecting our planet's wildlife.
Be sure to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast streaming platform so that you never miss an episode.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Coral. I'm so excited for this season. This is really the heart of my passion. California has a desert heart, and I want to share everything about it in this season. So I'm just grateful that we get the opportunity to do that. And we have a fun episode ahead of us today with Professor Kurt Leuschner. And he is a professor at the College of the Desert in Coachella Valley. And he really breaks down so many big topics in this conversation.
Kurt was really such a wonderful guest because we originally reached out to him for an ornithology lens for desert birds, migratory birds in the Southern California desert areas. But we got so much more from Kurt. He also talked about all these different sustainability approaches that you can take in your everyday. And then also we break down a lot of big conversation pieces around energy, different sources of energy, what is being proposed in Southern California deserts, what's already there, how they could probably be better. And we just really break down all different types of energy sources and how he brings that into his own teachings at the College of the Desert. And honestly, it just made me want to take his class.
I know, right? It would be great to sit in his classroom and just learn from him. That's how I felt during this conversation. It reminded me of being in college and hearing all of these approaches to conservation. He is so pragmatic in his approach to how he teaches and how he shares positive change, and that all of these energy sources, while they may not be perfect, solar has its negative side effects, so does wind, but it's better than not trying, right? And taking that step in a positive direction. And another way to take a step in a positive direction for wildlife is by creating your own backyard bird habitat. And this means killing your lawn and planting native plants. Not only does it attract native birds, you have pollinators, bees, butterflies, everything. Your garden will become a corridor for wildlife to travel through. And he shows us all the ways in which you can do that in so many fascinating ways too. Like the palm fronds, right? Leaving the palm fronds around the palm tree and not cutting them. That was a great tip.
Palm fronds meaning like the
skirt,
the dead part, and that is normally cleaned off, like leaving those on for different type of species. You'll find out in this episode.
Yes, we don't want to give too much away, but it's a great episode.
So Freaker Force, the Roadrunner, obviously it's such a huge, iconic bird of the desert. Looney Tunes does a whole thing about it. I loved my Looney Tunes growing up, and the Roadrunner
same.
was so funny.
I loved watching the Roadrunner.
Yeah.
Chasing the coyote around, or vice versa.
Yeah. So this was a nice, like, just tribute to that, I feel like.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. He tells us a lot of cool facts about the Roadrunner, and that's why I think they're probably a force of nature, in my opinion, because of how fast they can go on the ground.
18 miles an hour.
18 miles per hour is insane. And they prefer to be on the ground, too, rather than flying. Yeah.
I'm going to say freak because they have 2 toes forward and 2 toes back.
Oh, true. That's another cool fact about their anatomy.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny. I think they're little freaks running around the desert.
Love that. What would you say is your breath of fresh air that relates to this episode?
So honestly, what my mind goes to is when we were getting ready for our Joshua Tree records for this season, and we went to the Roadrunner Cafe in Joshua Tree, and we talked so much about the Roadrunner in this episode. And I just love that it's just such a loved animal in the desert, and even has a wonderful cafe. If you've not been there, please go there. They are gold standard from Katie Shaw's episode that we see. So yeah, it was a nice like morning pick me up when we were going to record our season 2.
And it was actually a very beautiful morning that morning as well. It was early May, so the desert is still very pleasant. And there was just this crisp stillness about the air, and the sky was so blue. And I was just on cloud 9 that morning. That was our first like big recording day for the season, and now it's August. Looking back on that early May session feels monumental in a way, because I've been wanting to do a desert season for so long, and finally getting to do that at a really cool recording studio on a beautiful day. Oh wait, another good thing for Breath of Nature was our hike after we did the records. And that was actually a Mojave Desert Land Trust easement property that we had hiked through in Yucca Valley. And we saw some huge creosote. We saw like some of the biggest creosote I have ever seen on that hiking trail.
That was such a gorgeous hike because I don't think it's super well known. And the owner of Joshua Tree Recording Studios, he's the one who was like, oh yeah, just go on this hike back there. And thank God we did, because it was just so beautiful. And like, honestly, not many people were around, which was, I feel like, always really nice when you're going on a hike.
There weren't that many people around, you're right. And we saw a lot of birds. I think I showed you a cactus wren for the first time.
Yeah.
And maybe a phainopepla as well, which are both endemic species to the southwest. And we talk a good bit about that native species element with the cactus wren and how maybe climate change is affecting their range. So it's really special when you get to see some of those desert birds. Hey, all you planet people. Thank you so much for tuning into this fun episode today. We have a great guest on today. Kurt Leuschner is a professor of natural resources at the College of the Desert. We are so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome, Kurt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Kurt, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it means to be a professor of natural resources at the College of the Desert?
Well, I teach classes on conservation, environmental studies, how to take care of the earth in so many different ways. My specialty is birds and insects. I also teach entomology, but I'm interested in all aspects of natural history, so all that comes out in the classes. We look at issues that concern everyone: water, endangered species, energy, climate change, you name it. We cover all those environmental topics and try to teach students how to live more sustainably.
What are those through lines that you're teaching your students how to live more sustainably? Like, what are some things that we can leave our listeners with today that you may teach in your class? Not to like give away your whole syllabus or anything, but
yeah, well, where do you begin? I mean, it's a whole semester course, but I mean, we can all do a better job of being more energy efficient, either at home or with the vehicles we drive and our lifestyles and the things we eat. Another big important topic that has a big impact on the earth. And water usage, especially here in the desert where water is so scarce. We have to spend a lot of time talking about water and how we can do better with water consumption. And we look at overall what we call the ecological footprint, and try to find ways to reduce that footprint during the semester class. And then hopefully for the rest of their lives, the students will continue to want to strive to get that footprint down.
Definitely. To your point about the ecological footprint, I remember when I was in my environmental studies course, and my teacher greatly influenced me about ways I can reduce, my meat consumption, right? And how that has an impact on the planet and the way that we can reduce our food waste. That's one of the biggest contributors to climate change is food waste. And I remember fondly my teacher telling me about that, and it definitely changed my own behavior. So I think that's great that you can leave your students with that kind of message.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the quickest and easiest ways for anyone, not just students, to make an impact in terms of climate change, is to really look at their diet and make some changes there. Lessen that meat consumption in particular. It's good for the planet, and it's good for your own health too.
Yep, that's a good point. And I think we really need to address the bigger picture here with our energy consumption and the way that we're contributing to food waste and how that leads to just all of these impacts that we're seeing with climate change. And I guess to the point of climate change, in your time teaching and all of your studies with natural resources in the desert, have you seen impacts through your lifetime and with weather changes, with, you know, less water in the desert? What are some of these things that you're seeing as a result of climate change in the desert?
Yeah, some of the more noticeable things over the years, and I've been teaching this class over 30 years. The Salton Sea is one place that we go on field trips regularly. And so there's a place where you can actually see impacts of climate change and water usage as the sea shrinks and gets smaller, and the birds become a little more challenging to find. They're still out there, but they're further away now and hard to get to. Mm-hmm. And also up in Joshua Tree, there's an area where you can see impacts. You can see the stress on many of those Joshua trees, and you can see future generations of Joshua trees not appearing. And so we're all wondering what the future holds there for Joshua trees in Joshua Tree National Park. So those are a couple of the places where you can actually visibly see climate change impacts.
I'm glad you brought up Joshua trees, because that's something that we are passionate about discussing on the show. And they're even saying that Joshua trees might disappear from Joshua Tree National Park by the end of the century.
Yeah, there's data to support that, and they're definitely declining faster in Joshua Tree National Park than they are, say, in the Mojave National Preserve, a bit north of there, where they seem to be holding on a little better. It's a little cooler and a little wetter up there, and that makes a difference.
And they're at a higher elevation. That's the eastern Joshua Tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, right. So the western one is in more trouble than the eastern one due to the impacts of climate change. But and they're all being affected, though.
Mm-hmm. Are you aware of the intricacies of the Joshua Tree Conservation Act and how that's leading to protections, or there are kind of some loopholes with that act that a lot of people are discussing too? I don't know if you have anything to share about that.
I don't know all the specifics of the loopholes, mm-hmm. but people are always looking for ways around things, aren't they? And so this is just another example of that. But I think getting protection for the western Joshua Tree in California was a great thing.
Agreed. Yeah, I remember in 2020, or maybe it was 2021, I was working on the 395 highway expansion project up by Lone Pine, and there was this huge frenzy of trying to protect Joshua trees and flagging them off from development, and developers were trying their best to get them out of the ground as fast as possible so they didn't have to pay fines. And I think today there's definitely more protections than there were a few years ago, but it's still a battle to get them.
Yeah. I mean, we still got to get the word out. And so what you're doing is a great thing, because this is one way to educate the locals. The people who actually live amongst the Joshua trees are the ones, who are going to make or break these decisions about them. Yeah.
Definitely.
So keep educating them.
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little bird's eye view to the Salton Sea. I personally did not know what this was, and it sounds like when people say Salton Sea, it sounds like they're saying salt and sea, but no, it's Salton Sea, like SALTON space SEA, and it's actually like, I don't know, what would you say, a lake in the middle of the desert?
Yeah, so the Salton Sea is a man-made lake basically in the middle of the desert in Imperial County, and it was made in the 60s to stock freshwater cod fish, which is highly unusual. And the only reason I know this is because my fiance is obsessed with fishing, and he told me about this. It was like a phenomenon, right? In the 60s, it was like the pop-in place to be. It was like the next Palm Springs. You're on your boat out there fishing, everyone's sunbathing. Well, fast forward to modern day, it is a kind of toxic wasteland.
It's like a ghost town.
Well, not only is it a ghost town, like the whole Palm Springs allure and like vacation energy completely perished because it started to get really polluted and the fish started dying. And there's just a ton of chemicals that sit at the bottom of the lake. Like a lot of the water evaporated. The shore just started reeking. Like if you go down there, it does have a bit of a smell. So it's this really unique place, right? Because if you go there today, you'll see the remains of what was in the 60s. Like imagine it has this retro feel about it, like really stuck in time feel. I've driven through before. And these ghost town communities are actually like hubs for desert art.
Yeah.
And so there are little towns around the Salton Sea, like Bombay Beach, there's Slab City. And it's funny that we're talking about this today because I actually just pulled up a bunch of old film from when I drove through there after a project I was on in the Salton Sea looking for burrowing owl. So now in modern day, we see all of this come into play with this man-made lake basically becoming really toxic to the fish, the people. And while that was the case, there's this other side to it. And that's the biodiversity of the bird life. The Salton Sea is a migratory hotspot in the Southwest. We see tons of water birds, waterfowl, shorebirds, seabirds come through there as a stopping ground on their way north. And I've been privileged enough to have done a bunch of surveys out in Brawley for burrowing owl. And so we talk about that in this episode a bit. How there's the last stronghold here of burrowing owl in that region. There's a lot of cool raptor diversity and tons of shorebirds. And so that's the Salton Sea in a nutshell. It's really a unique place, and I recommend driving through on a road trip just to see what the history and the diversity now and the effects of what that place had on the environment.
Yeah, and the reason that those fish were dying off, and also because it's like what you're saying, it just became really toxic, is because it has a really high salinity, meaning it has a lot of salt. So the name is really fitting, Salton Sea. And it's actually shrinking today, and I think it has some health concerns for neighboring communities.
It does.
Yeah.
The Salton Sea was a resort destination in the 20th century, but saw die-offs of fish and birds in the late 1980s. So this contamination that led to this die-off of birds was largely in part from farm runoff with these herbicides and pesticides. And so clouds of toxic dust from that runoff create a current modern event, create a toxic dust cloud, basically, that causes these terrible asthma problems.
And we see something similar with that with like the red tide. We also see something
very similar
in my home state, North Carolina. There's a lot of pig agricultural runoff, and we have a friend that's getting her PhD in those effects as well. So definitely a constant in the United States, and one to pay a lot of attention to, especially now. Thank you for taking this migratory bird's eye view with us. Back to the show.
To ask Kurt a little bit about the Salton Sea and just kind of set the stage for what does a field trip look like there, and what kind of birds are you seeing?
I do so many different trips there. It's, I can't just generalize. Some are just for birds. Some are just to see all the other crazy things in and around the Salton Sea, like Bombay Beach and Slab City and the mud volcanoes and things like that. So there's a lot of geological wonders down there, plus the birds. It's the second most diverse area in the United States in terms of numbers of bird species that utilize that place after the Gulf of
what kind of birds are you seeing there?
Mexico. Well, I mean, water birds are a big attraction during migration, especially, and also during the winter. A lot of birds winter there, but a lot of birds just pass through spring and fall.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mix. I mean, and there's resident birds that are there all year, but some really odd birds can show up, especially in migration period, or birds that wander up here from Mexico and get lost over the desert, and they see that water and they go for it.
What is the most surprising bird that you've seen?
Well, the most unusual bird, I think everybody would agree who knows about it, was the Ross's gull that showed up in 2011. Yes. It's the furthest south the Ross's gull has ever occurred. At least it was back in 2011. There was one in Hawaii recently that kind of broke that record. But anyway, it was very unusual for this Arctic bird that's normally off the north coast of Alaska to be down here at the Salton Sea, and yet there it was.
Wow.
So that was the most unusual and the rarest of any bird that's shown up there.
And so what are some resident birds that you're seeing all year round?
Resident birds are mostly desert birds, the birds that live on the edges of the Salton Sea, not necessarily the water birds. Most of the water birds migrate north and nest somewhere else. The resident birds are the same birds that we see in the desert, the roadrunner.
I feel like the roadrunner is the most iconic bird of the desert, at least in my opinion.
For sure.
I work in animation, so we definitely think of roadrunner when we think of desert birds.
Yeah, people come to the desert, they expect to see a roadrunner for sure. Yeah. That's number one on their list.
What are some fun facts about roadrunners?
Well, they're members of the cuckoo family. They've got strange arrangement of toes with 2 toes pointing forward and 2 pointing backwards. So their track, it looks kind of like an X. Mm-hmm. They're big time meat eaters. They'll even eat hummingbirds and snatch them right out of the air.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Have you seen that before?
I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them attempt to eat hummingbirds for sure. I can't recall actually seeing them succeed, but I know that they do. I've seen pictures of it.
That's cool.
Yeah. But they're fun birds. They can fly, but they prefer to run.
Do you know how fast they can run on average?
18 miles an hour is often quoted as a top speed.
Okay, that's fast.
Yeah, for a bird.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some other desert birds that get you excited when you see them in the wild?
Well, if we're talking about Joshua Tree, I don't know, Joshua Tree National Park, there's pinion jays up there that I don't see very often, but at Black Rock Campground, they're pretty regular.
Good to know.
And also Scott's orioles nest throughout Joshua trees and are kind of associated with the Joshua tree. And they're beautiful birds with a black head and a yellow body. And so those are always nice to see. They're only there in the summer.
Mm. And why are they sort of associated with Joshua trees?
Well, there aren't many trees in Joshua Tree, and these birds need something to nest in that's off the ground. And so that's pretty much the only candidate. It's the closest thing around to a palm tree. Mm-hmm. And so that's where they nest. Cool. And they can also find insects and nectar and things like that on the Joshua Tree.
And are pinion jays endemic to the high desert?
Well, I wouldn't use the word endemic. I mean, they're a resident of the southwestern United States as a whole. But they do occur mostly near pinyon pine trees. And Black Rock has a number of those. So that's the key. So they're kind of a mid-elevation bird.
Cool. And is that your favorite desert bird? I think I read that. Or
people ask me what's my favorite bird all the time, and that's the one I say. Yeah. It's just my favorite bird, period.
Yeah.
Not just the desert.
Cool.
Always liked them.
Are you a fan of California condors?
What about them?
Are you a fan of California condors?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of California condors, sure. And they're getting closer to Joshua Tree as well. One was seen flying over Big Bear.
Oh, cool.
At one point a few years ago. And that's not too far from here. So the condors are slowly expanding their range, and yeah, they could be coming to our valley one of these days.
I would love that. I think it would be really cool to connect some of those, mid-California flock. There's the Bakersfield flock and Big Sur, but we need something to connect the Baja the Baja flock in Mexico to the rest of California. So I was thinking it would be really cool if they made Anza Borrego, like another area that condors could be released at or something. Do you have any thoughts on that, or where else they could be repopulated in Southern California?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea. I've never heard it suggested, but there could be something to it. I don't know that they're actively looking for another release site at the moment, but maybe they are. And if so, maybe that one fits the bill. I'm not sure. It's kind of in between the Mexico population and the one up in the Sespe Wilderness, north of LA. And it's a big area with a lot of room to roam. So who knows? Yeah, there could be something to that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I was on a big California condor adventure with the Wildlife Society a couple of years ago, where we toured some of the flocks in California from Pinnacles down to Big Sur and to Bakersfield. And some of us were just talking like that would be really cool if there was another release site somewhere where they could connect Mexico to the rest of California. And Anza Borrego is like the biggest state park, one of the biggest state parks in the country, and I think the biggest in California. So
I like that idea. Like you said, I haven't heard about it, but I would support that. Maybe that could happen.
Maybe that would be awesome.
I've been watching condors since I was a kid. Back in the 70s, I used to go watch them at Mount Pinus.
Oh, where's that?
North of LA.
Okay.
And that was the last flock of condors there back in the 70s before they captured them all.
That's crazy. You saw them in the wild before the captive breeding program started.
I guess you could say those were really wild condors. They hadn't been captured at that point. But,
right. Yeah, there was a lot of controversy during that time about whether or not to start the captive breeding program with condors. I remember reading one paper, I think by a guy named Rich, maybe. He was with the San Francisco Audubon Society, who greatly opposed reintroducing condors because he thought tagging them all with, those transmitters was just, making them not wild, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. There was a lot of controversy back then, and it was split almost down the middle, it seems, for or against. But in the end, they did capture them all, and the breeding program has been quite successful. So it seems like they made the right decision.
Yeah. Do you think it was the right call as someone who saw them at one point before they were captured? Yeah,
I'd have to say with the results they have now, there's well over 500 birds from a low of 22. I'd say it was a success and the right decision.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Because not all birds will breed in captivity, and there was uncertainty about whether condors would but turns out they will breed in captivity, and so it did work out.
Is the California condor considered a keystone species?
Keystone, you might be able to make a case for a keystone species. It's helps with the process of recycling dead animals and things like that, and that's an important part of the ecosystem services. So it does provide an important ecosystem service. So again, you can make an argument as a keystone species. We refer to it more as an umbrella species, which is another important category of species classification. And that's a species that requires large tracts of land for its survival. And so by preserving those areas for the condor, which we've done, we're also preserving a lot of fantastic habitat for many, many other species who live under that same protective umbrella.
Yeah. Okay. Umbrella
species. So that's things like wolves and bighorn sheep and mountain lions and condors. We call them umbrella species because they need a lot of room to roam. They need a lot of land. So if we can learn how to live with those species, then we're going to protect a lot of other species as well. Just by default almost.
Yeah. So, have you seen a general decline in desert birds in your time as a professor, or?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I guess there is a decline in birds going on, and it's worldwide, and the data shows that to be happening in most places. And so the data is there to back up that statement. And it does seem like maybe I don't see quite as many birds as I did maybe 30 or 40 years ago. But again, I don't have that specific data at my fingertips to say, yes, there's a decline. There's still birds out there, but just not as many. And we have a newer way to document that too. It's called eBird. Mm-hmm. So with people reporting all of their sightings to eBird now, you can actually go on to ebird.org and see those trends for yourself and look at that data and look at specific species. Some species are declining a lot, and other species are holding their own. And a few species are even probably expanding their ranges and their numbers, the ones that can adapt to the human element. But overall, most bird species are declining, and some quite significantly, yes. And I've noticed.
Well, we have talked a lot about ravens on the show in relation to the desert and that cyclical situation that's, not really great for the desert tortoise. So
yeah, there's too many ravens.
Yeah, too many ravens.
And it's our fault, the humans. So I think it's up to us to do something about it.
Do you feel like that's the only bird right now that you're seeing in the desert that's like, okay, this is overpopulated? Or do you feel like there's another bird out there that is?
Well, it's not the only problem bird, but it's definitely a big noticeable one. Mm-hmm. And maybe the one that needs the most immediate attention here in the desert, at least.
Yeah.
But there's other birds that can be an issue. Eurasian collared doves numbers are way up. And what impact that's having on other birds and other dove species remains to be seen, but there could be an impact there. House sparrows and starlings have long been a problem species, both of those. So anytime you see house sparrows showing up in an area, that's never a good sign for the native species that live there.
And why do you say that?
Well, they just displace other birds and are very aggressive about it. And so they take away a lot of nesting opportunities for other cavity nesting birds, for one, besides stealing the food and taking over the habitat.
And are they just more aggressive in their approach, and that's why those native birds are kind of being pushed out? Or
yeah, generally, yes. Yeah. And then they can populate so quickly if they get established. So places like Big Morongo Canyon Preserve in Morongo Valley, they're trying very hard and hoping that house sparrows don't really make it into there, because that could be a really bad sign if they do.
So they're outcompeting native birds for more natural resources, nesting opportunities, food, water, I'm sure.
Yeah. They're just so adaptable to the human situation. So they do really well in our backyards, for example.
Sure. So we're seeing a decline in biodiversity of birds, perhaps, then, while other more common species are becoming more prevalent and overpopulated, perhaps.
Yeah, the native species tend to be the ones who are declining. And the non-native species, like the starlings and the pigeons and the house sparrows, are the ones that keep increasing their numbers.
What are some reasons you're seeing declines for birds? I know there's a ton of new energy development in the desert. If you want to speak to that, do you think there's a decline in birds because of solar, for example, or wind energy? What's your take on renewables in the desert?
Well, it's a mix of things. The number one reason for most species decline is habitat loss in general. And again, that goes back to humans. As we expand our range and build more houses and take over more natural areas, we're taking away that habitat from wild species, not just birds, but we're talking about birds on this podcast. So birds are losing their habitat, and if they lose their habitat, then they're losing food, they're losing water, they're losing shelter, the things they need to survive. And in terms of renewable energy, if you look at large-scale solar, for example, like they're proposing to put up in 29 Palms, that's going to take away a huge chunk of natural desert habitat that's important for the species that live there right now. And so they'll be displaced immediately, and they'll never be able to use that land again, for example. So large-scale solar has a huge impact on wildlife, not just birds, but birds are one of the victims of that. Wind power has impacts on birds and bats because they're flying through that same airspace that the wind turbines are being put in. So proper placement of those wind turbines is essential. Maybe not putting them in crucial migratory areas or ridge tops, should be considered. But sometimes we're in such a rush to develop and put these new things out that we don't think about the impacts that it's going to cause on birds and wildlife and the landscape in general. So wind has its issues for sure, and those should be considered before we just cover the land with wind turbines. And same thing for solar. I would like to see solar energy be put on rooftops and parking lots and vacant lots, places like that where the impact on the environment and on wildlife is minimal.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think wide-scale solar, especially in the desert, is a horrible use of land, and it shouldn't be used at all. It should just be preserved as, a habitat corridor and migratory pathway for other animals traveling through, whether it be birds or desert tortoise, coyote, badger. So what's your take on nuclear energy? I know in the Salton Sea there's a proposal for starting a nuclear plant there. Do you agree with that type of renewable energy? I'm curious to know.
Well, I hadn't heard about that proposal, so I'd like to hear more. But in general, most people don't want nuclear energy anywhere near where they live.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main reasons we haven't built a new nuclear power plant in this country in decades, because nobody wants them.
Yeah.
The nuclear industry would tell you that they're quite safe and there's very little chance of an accident. And that may be true, but if there is an accident, people tend to remember it, and it can have wide-ranging impacts, as we've seen in the past with what happened in Japan and Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and other places. Mm-hmm. So people tend to remember those things and don't want that to happen where they live. And so most politicians don't want to push nuclear power because they know that the people living in their area aren't going to want it either. And we haven't even talked about the problem of nuclear waste. So we still haven't solved the problem of where to store the nuclear waste that's safe. And there may be no place on this earth where it's safe to store all that highly radioactive waste. At least we haven't figured that out yet. So personally, if we could figure out a safe place to store the waste that everybody agrees on, and we probably won't, that would make me think more favorably about nuclear power, but that hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. And so I certainly wouldn't want one in my region if I had the choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Circling back about solar, I love the idea of putting them in parking lots and like already paved areas. I actually haven't heard that idea before, and I think it's a really great one. I don't know if it's hard to get the owners of those parking lots on board, but it's a really great alternative.
Well, if you drive around the desert, you'll see schools like the school I'm at right now, College of the Desert. Our parking lots are covered with solar panels, and so are a lot of schools in the desert. And it makes perfect sense because you need the shade for your cars and for your street fairs and things. And you get the energy at the same time. It's a win-win.
Yeah, that's great.
So it is happening, and it can happen in a lot more places too. But it's cheaper sometimes for developers to just buy a piece of land somewhere and just bulldoze it and then just put a whole bunch of the same thing on that land instead of trying to work deals on a slightly smaller scale.
Well, and then the issue with moving away from those large scale solar projects is that we become independent of bigger energy sources. And that's what developers and the energy grid doesn't want. They don't want people to independently be able to power their own homes or stores with parking lot solar. And so it's a battle.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that's another issue is the grid and where that energy is going to go. I have solar panels on my home. I was the first one to do it here in Palm Desert, and because I wanted to, show my students the right way to go. And I don't mind putting my energy back into the grid. I don't need to cut the cord necessarily and have my own energy stored on site. I'm happy to contribute it to the grid, but I just want everybody to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And for utility companies and the state and all the people making the decisions on this, the energy commissioners, to make it as easy as possible for people to do that at their homes. So everybody can become an energy provider and contribute to the power on the grid that's shared by all of us.
Mm.
It can happen, and it's starting to happen, but a lot of politics involved.
And now with the tariffs, it's becoming more expensive to import those goods and become, energy efficient on your own.
Yeah.
We were recording a few episodes in Joshua Tree at a recording studio, and the owner of the studio was talking about how he was trying to put solar on his rooftop and that he couldn't afford it because the tariffs were just so outrageous. And so,
well, yeah, I think he got in just in time. Basically, if he had waited a couple more months, he was like, there's no way I would have been able to afford this. And because it doubled in price, I think, which is nuts.
Yeah, hopefully that's just a temporary thing, but because in the long run, the price is going to come down and the tariffs hopefully will disappear and we'll do the right thing. But yeah, it takes time to make these changes.
That's all we can hope for, right? It's a path forward.
But it's still worth it. I mean, people still should want to do the right thing, even if it costs a little bit more.
Yeah.
I agree. It is worth it. And we need renewable energy to move away from fossil fuels, but then I feel like it's a double-edged sword because there's so much energy consumption and drilling and mining that goes into building these parts for renewable energy, the solar panels, lithium batteries for EVs. So it's hard to understand that. I feel like I have a bone to pick with renewable energy because of these impacts it's having on, the desert landscape, especially with solar. I'm very anti big solar farms. But I want to believe in the future of renewable energy because we want to shift away from fossil fuels. But then we have this issue with the land development. Where do you sit in between that?
Well, I mean, no solution is perfect, right? So we want to use the best solutions that are available and then make them even better. If we put the wind turbines in the right places, then the impacts are minimized. And if we put solar in the right places, then solar is a great thing that everybody can use and be proud of. So it's the alternative energies are great. It's just a matter of how we use them and where we put them. And those are the things we're still trying to sort out. But at least here in California, we're ahead of most all other states regarding that. So but we're making some of the tough decisions that are going to help pave the way for the rest of the country once we figure it out.
Yeah. What are some negative impacts of wind turbines? Is it also this habitat loss?
Well, there's visual impacts for one. I mean, it does people generally don't want to live within sight of these wind farms.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people out there who are willing to do that, but most people don't want a wind farm in their backyard. And so that's certainly one pretty important factor when you're trying to site these wind farms. You got to put them in the middle of nowhere. The problem is the wind isn't always in those places either. So you've got to find a place that has suitable amount of wind throughout the year.
Yeah.
And isn't going to anger people who might live in that area who have to look at these things. And then there's the wildlife impacts that we've been talking about. There's birds and bats. Most birds migrate at night. People forget about that. And these night migrating birds migrate very low in terms of altitude. And on a cloudy night, they can get really confused, especially by the artificial lights that we shine up in the sky. It draws them in and they start slamming into things like wind turbines. And same thing with bats. Even though bats have the ability to detect their prey with sonar, they still can't always tell that a wind turbine is spinning in front of them. And so there's impacts on bats, which we desperately need to keep mosquitoes and bugs in check. There's impacts on night migrating birds. There's impacts on day flying birds like hawks and eagles that run into these things. And the newer turbines are bigger than ever.
Yeah.
Notice they're going much higher than the older ones. And the rotors on there, what you might call the blades, they're called rotors, are spinning at a really high rate, even though it looks like they're spinning slowly. And so there's impacts on day flying birds as well. So I like birds a lot. I'm not a huge fan of wind power because of the impacts on birds, but I believe if we are going to have wind power, that we should do it right and be very careful about where we place those turbines. Yeah.
Is there any sort of solution, do you think, of the design of it to, whether those rotors are either lower in elevation or even higher to avoid
those low flying birds during migration? Yeah.
The speed of the rotor is probably hard to control, but if there is technology out there that can detect if a hawk or an eagle or a condor in particular is in the area. If condors are equipped with certain transmitters and the wind turbines are equipped with certain receivers, then the turbine can automatically detect if a condor is coming too close and it can shut itself off for a time.
Yeah.
The condor passes. That technology already exists. Now, it's costly and somebody has to pay for it. And then that's the big question is who's going to pay for this and who's going to ensure that the condors, have the equipment on them, and are the wind companies going to be required to have this technology installed because they don't want to put it on there if they don't have to. So again, it comes down to politics and laws that must be passed and regulations and rules that have to be there to force people to do the right thing.
Well, I think that's a great regulation that you bring up. I mean, and something it's probably costly, but it just makes so much sense if it's detecting, movement or motion of a bird nearby, then
especially a condor.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of wind energy and all alternative energies. I'm in favor of. Mm-hmm. And if I owned my own wind farm, I would want to make sure to do it right. I would want to consider all of these things, and I would want to put the right lighting on them that doesn't mistakenly attract birds at night. Because there's different things you can do with the lighting scheme, whether you have white lights or red lights or slow blinking or fast blinking. So the research has been done to determine what's best for wildlife. So I would want to make sure my wind farm had the right lighting scheme, the right placement in terms of avoiding certain popular ridge tops with eagles and hawks or migration corridors. And if there were any condors or birds like that in the area, I would want to make sure that they're equipped so I could detect them.
Yeah.
But that's just me, and of course that would cut into my profit margin. So I wouldn't make as much as somebody might make if they didn't have any of this to consider.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's the price we have to pay for, having a clean and sustainable environment with the wildlife.
Coexisting with the wildlife around you. It's definitely what we're about here at Planet People.
These renewable energy companies should hire you as a consultant to help them address these ecological issues when they're building these sites.
Yeah, well, I guess I wish they would.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
What do you think about the wind farm in Palm Springs? I mean, that's been there since the 90s, the 80s.
I'm not against it, and I take my students there because one of our units is on wind energy, so we learn about how it works, and then we have a field trip out there to actually go stand underneath them and see them, and then we discuss all the topics we've been discussing here. What are the pros and what are the cons? And what are the impacts on wildlife? How can that be fixed or changed or improved? So these are the very things we discuss in class, and having the wind farm right in our own backyard is kind of handy when you're trying to learn about these things and show students the impacts.
Yeah, that's really cool. You can take them there and do this applied learning element of being in the field.
And we've also got a biomass energy plant in Mecca that we tour. We've toured the geothermal plants down in Salton Sea, another form of alternative energy. Solar, of course, is all over the place, so we can spend time learning about that. So we cover all the forms of energy in the class. But again, no form of energy is perfect. They've all got pros and cons, pluses and minuses, and those are the things we discuss.
What do the biomass and the geothermal energy plants that you're going to, what do those look like?
Well, biomass is taking wood waste, wood that would otherwise be put in the landfill and cause a landfill issue. They take that wood waste and they burn it, and they make electricity out of it. So they're doing actually two important things. They're making electricity, which we all need, from a renewable energy source, because there's always going to be wood waste. And they're also removing waste from the landfill. In other words, they're recycling. Yeah. And so they're not only making energy, they're also recycling at the same time. So they're doing two very important things at once. And so these are the things that we look at when we tour the plant. How they make the energy and how they procure the wood and get it ready to burn, and what they do with the leftovers. They're very efficient with the leftovers. They use the leftover ash for various products. They use the leftover rubber they actually burn rubber. They have in the past burned rubber from tires, old tires. So if you burn these things as cleanly as possible, then it's a good use of that resource. You're basically taking trash and making it into treasure, electricity. So that's what a biomass plant can do. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of biomass plants anymore. There's fewer than there used to be. You'd think we'd be putting more of these things up. In fact, it's the other way. They've been kind of crowded out.
Why is that?
Well, I'd say the short answer is politics. There's other companies and other energy companies that maybe don't want biomass to expand, and so they have a lot of influence on the laws and the rules here in California and other places to kind of slow them down. It's all about profit margins too. You don't have as great a profit margin at a biomass plant than you might have at an oil burning plant or a coal burning plant in some other state. And so some people are just going where the profit margins are the highest. They're not thinking about those other factors.
And what about the geothermal sites? What does that look like?
Well, geothermal is another great source of energy, alternative energy, green energy. It has a very low carbon footprint kind of like nuclear power. And that's a good thing in terms of climate change. And it's essentially free. I mean, they're just tapping into what Mother Nature is providing. You happen to have hot water, hot steam, relatively close to the surface of the earth that you can tap into and turn it into electricity quite simply. But the problem is, and it's not really a problem, it's just a limitation, is that you can only have these plants in certain areas where the geology is going to allow it. The Salton Sea just happens to be one of those places where geothermal can happen.
So is that where the geothermal plant is then, in the Salton Sea?
Well, there's many of them down there, but yes,
okay.
The whole south end of the Salton Sea, that whole region is a kind of a hotbed, a hot spot, you might say.
Sure.
Kind of like Yellowstone National Park.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the whole country of Iceland, which runs 100% on geothermal energy.
Oh, 100%? I didn't know it was 100%.
They lie
cool.
right at the intersection of two tectonic plates, just like we do. And that's what helps create these geological hotspots.
Yeah.
So like I said, geothermal is limited to certain areas that have the right geology to support them.
I visited Iceland, and we talked a lot about that on a tour that I took. It was just really cool to see this entire country be energized in this way.
Yeah, and they didn't do anything in Iceland to make that happen. It just so happens that nature provided them with what they need right there. So I'm in favor of geothermal energy. It's one of the cleanest, least impactful forms of alternative energy there is. But again, it's going to be limited to certain areas. We can't just stick pipes in the ground and expect steam to come up. Yeah. And it doesn't happen that way. But maybe they can expand that field down there. And that's also where they're talking about extracting all that lithium.
Right.
For future car batteries, which could be a real boon to the economy down there if they do that right.
The Salton Sea is a ripe spot for a lot of different types of energy development. It sounds like I have heard about the lithium mining as well. And I wonder what all these proposals would mean for the migratory birds coming through, if that would limit their pathway.
The Lithium Valley is a big topic down at the Salton Sea. Solar energy, of course, has potential to expand down there, large-scale solar. I wouldn't be in favor of that, but I could see those proposals perhaps coming in. And those could have impacts on birds if they're taking away, again, habitat that they're using on the edge of the Salton Sea. But if this geothermal is expanded, and if the lithium is extracted, again, if they do it right with all these other things in mind, then it could be a win-win. It could be a good thing for us humans and the local people who live down there, and it can be good for migratory birds, or at least not be negatively impactful on them if they do it right.
If they do it right, yeah.
And if some of that money maybe is set aside to make sure there's sufficient wetland habitat, for example, for some of these migratory birds, and the water isn't overpolluted more than it already is, and things like that.
Sure.
So it's about doing it the right way, and that's where rules and laws and regulations and politics come into play.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate your outlook on renewable energy, because sometimes I just feel like I've had a bone to pick with solar, seeing firsthand the impact that it's had as a desert tortoise biologist. I've done a ton of surveys for tortoises and burrowing owls and kit fox, all those burrowing creatures of the desert, and just their home being removed for these solar panels. But at the end of the day, if we can do it right and in a way that, I'm there to make sure that a lot of these developers do it right and they're not running over tortoises or tearing out Joshua trees and all that. And so that does give me hope. And your outlook on all things renewable, and, you're saying that if we do it right, and renewable is a good thing, and it just has to be done in a way that has like an eco mindset, right? Where we're putting wind energy in the right place and putting solar on rooftops. Like, this can work in our favor if it's not involving large scale, like land removal, essentially.
Yeah.
There has to be some hope, right? In the silver lining of it all.
Totally.
Yeah. What kind of hopeful messages do you like to leave your students with? Just positive words when you're talking about kind of the state of the environment and what's going on with climate change, things like that.
Well, just that every little bit that anyone can do will help. So, I try to impress on my students maybe not to get overwhelmed by all the negativity out there, because it's easy to feel that way. And to know that every little thing that they do to get that ecological footprint down, I tell them to start with yourself, start at home, start with the easy things, and then start broadening your influence. But every little thing you do can make an impact, because we start to multiply that by hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of people doing that same little thing, and it adds up. And, it's like we don't have a choice. Our only choice is to keep moving forward and keep living more sustainably and keep doing better at getting our footprint down. We don't want to go backwards. Alternative energy is here to stay, and even though there's some negatives associated with it, we need to start working around those, because that's the way of the future. There's enough energy in the sun and the wind to give us everything we need, and geothermal as well. I don't know. So just try to tell my students to stay strong and be smart about what they do, and to just keep pushing ahead. And little by little, we're going to change things.
I appreciate that. Yeah. There's a quote I saw recently that said, life is not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
I think that's true. It's not supposed to be easy. If we can reduce our waste and live sustainably, reduce our meat intake, gather our energy from the natural resources of the earth. Like you said, she gives us everything that we need. All the energy we need can just come from what's outside.
Yeah, I mean, the answers are there. They're right in front of us. So we just have to implement them and, like I said, do things the right way.
Mm-hmm. Do things the right way.
That's the good news. The positive message is that we have the answers to keep us moving forward, and we just got to put it into place. And again, politics sometimes slows that down a lot, but that's something that can be overcome.
Be overcome with education and what you're doing with your students and what we're doing on the show today. And it's one message at a time, and how that butterfly effect takes place unfolds naturally when you put forth good effort into living sustainably and spreading a good message.
Yeah, there's a lot of great positive examples out there, and then those are the things that we need to hear more about and emphasize when we're spreading the message.
Definitely. Did you have like an environmental role model growing up?
There's so many. I mean, certainly, my parents were a big influence. Got to give them credit, right?
Of course.
But Jane Goodall has been a great inspiration and a good friend of mine over the years. And David Attenborough, those two people I've had the pleasure of knowing and meeting, are right at the top of my list. And they're both still alive and going strong. And David Attenborough is about to turn 100. And so they've been a great inspiration to me in many ways. And so many others. I mean, I could come up with a huge list. Yeah,
we love Jane Goodall on the show. We were lucky enough to meet Jane on her 90th birthday last year. It's pretty incredible.
Where was that?
In Monterey, Carmel.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, you said you're good friends with her, or that you've met her, and
I worked with her in the Peace Corps.
Oh, wow.
Back in the the 80s.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
In Tanzania. So yeah, I was in the Peace Corps in Tanzania for 2 years, where she lives part-time.
Wow.
So that's when I met her and got to know her and work with her. And so we've been friends ever since then.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Wow. Where in Tanzania were you studying?
Well, I was in the Peace Corps.
Oh, you were in the Peace Corps, yeah.
I was working actually in many places in Tanzania. I wasn't just assigned to one particular village like a lot of Peace Corps volunteers are. So I spent time in Dar es Salaam, where she lives and has a house. I spent a lot of time in Arusha and on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro at a school called Mweka College, where they train wildlife managers. It's a 2-year college.
Wow.
And I've been going back ever since, taking people.
Oh, wow. How often do you go back?
Well, this year will be my 20th trip.
Oh.
There.
Where are you going?
So, when?
Yeah.
Oh, in July.
Cool.
I'm actually going to Kenya this year. I went to school at University of Nairobi before I was in the Peace Corps and studied zoology there. So I got to know East Africa and learn a bit of Kiswahili, and then I did the Peace Corps for 2 years in Tanzania. So I've just really gotten to know that area. And so now I take people back to show them around and take them on safari and things like that.
Very cool.
That's amazing. I was just in Kenya and Tanzania last July as well, actually. I spent a little bit of time in Dar es Salaam, and then I went over to Gombe and flew into, trying to remember the town around Gombe.
Kigoma?
Yes, Kigoma.
Yeah.
And took a boat over into Gombe, and I met Dr. Anthony Collins. He's been with Jane for so long, and I actually had the pleasure of seeing Jane on my way out. She was coming in when I was leaving, and I got to see her home and exchange words with her over tea in Gombe, which was pretty miraculous.
Yeah, that must have been in July, huh?
Yes, it was in July.
Yeah, she goes there every July, so you timed it right.
I did, yeah. I kind of had an inkling that she was going to be there when we met her for her 90th birthday. World Chimpanzee Day is July 14th, and there's rumor going around that there's a huge exhibit opening in Arusha for Jane. I think it'll be open this summer, but I'm not sure.
I bet it will. And there's actually a whole new Jane Goodall Center that is opening, if it hasn't opened already, in Arusha.
Maybe we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, so I think that's what you're talking about there. So we're going to be going to Tanzania next June, not this June, but a year from now. And so we'll be checking it out there.
Hey guys, popping in here. Happy holidays. I wanted to quickly jump in because this episode was recorded before Jane Goodall passed, RIP. We do mention her in this episode, and it's mentioned that she's alive and well. And as we know, she did pass in October. So we just wanted to take this time to call that out and give a little update there.
Yes, about 3 months without her now. She passed on October 1st, and it's December 11th. And we are very grateful for all that she's done for us this year. And hopefully this episode kind of gives you a little bit of insight about our guest and their interaction with Jane in the past and the ways that she has inspired both of us in this conversation. In addition to Jane having passed after this was already recorded, there's some other parts of the episode that we talk about regarding Jane and the Jane Goodall's Institute and their role in developing what is now the Goodall Center for Hope. And this is situated really in the cultural hub of Arusha, Tanzania. It's Dr. Jane's dream and really a call to action for people to experience her life and the innovative space that really serves as a beacon of conservation, education, and empowerment, all through her story and really providing a space for people to unite in her shared mission for the planet, and how she believed that everyone is connected and that everyone can really make a difference. And so they have educational programs as well, interactive exhibits, and it serves as a global conservation hub to really connect individuals and organizations in the fight for a sustainable future. And so the center really does embody Jane's unwavering belief in the power of humanity, and that when we use our clever human brain and our compassionate human heart, that we can really begin to harmonize with nature. And if you do ever have the opportunity to go to East Africa, considering making the Goodall Center of Hope a stop on your trip when it is open, a little update there. It is still in the process of being created and built out. It was supposed to be finished last summer, but it's still kind of underway, and hopefully it will be available for the general public in the summer of 2026. I'm so jealous you're going back. That was my first time in Africa last summer, and I'm dying to go back.
Well, the Peace Corps is always an option.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
That's awesome. So how many people are you taking over there?
Well, I usually take 18 people, because we usually have 3 vehicles and there's 6 window seats in every Land Cruiser.
Cool.
So that means 18, group of 18.
And are these usually your students, or are they
I wish they were my students. I mean, they can't always afford such a trip.
Yeah.
They need to join the Peace Corps first and do it that way and get a free trip that way. But no, it's whoever wants to go, whoever I know who wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
There always seems to be people asking to go.
Yeah.
On the next
I want to go. Sign me up for next year.
Yeah. So it's just something I do for fun. It's not a business or anything. It's just,
Sure.
It's just something I do on the side.
Well, it's a great thing to do with your summer break.
Yeah, it is. And I've got a lot of experience over there. So I want to use it for good and help support Tanzania in this case, or Kenya.
Yeah.
You know, because they rely a lot on ecotourism. And so I want to help with that.
Can you speak a little bit about ecotourism and just the differences between regular tourism that might be more on a consumption basis versus ecotourism, and how you practice that with your trips?
Well, part of, I don't know how to define ecotourism. There's so many forms of it, but it's getting out there and appreciating nature and maybe learning a little something while you're on your trip, instead of just maybe sitting on the beach the whole time or something. And also maybe visiting places like Tanzania, you know, one of the poorest countries on earth, to help support them monetarily, you know, because your tourism dollars, these trips aren't always cheap. And so you want to make sure your money is going to where it can be used in an impactful way. And so that's what I strive for. I work directly with a company owned by an African, not owned by some foreign interests. And so we want to make sure we support him and his company and the people who work for him directly. And then we try to pick our places that we visit carefully. That's part of ecotourism, is visiting, you know, places that you want to support and that are doing the right thing for the environment there. And so doing a little bit of research ahead of time is part of the process, and knowing the places you're going, and then it gives you a good feeling about visiting them and contributing your dollars to their efforts. Maybe having some educational talks along the way. So it's a mix of those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful that you provide that for so many people each year. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it's been fun.
What a dream. I mean, you're helping lead guided tours in Africa. That's so cool.
But there's other volunteer opportunities in places like Africa that people can connect with. And, I try to let my students know about these things.
Definitely. Are you familiar with any of the work that the Living Desert Zoo does I think they go to Botswana or maybe Zimbabwe? Dr. Denalfberg? James
Denalfberg.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I know him.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a conference and then attended the International Living Desert Summit last winter and learned about some of their community-based conservation programs that they run, I think, in Zimbabwe, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, you were? Oh,
yeah,
okay, cool.
I've been to both summits, yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have just missed you. I don't know.
Yeah, I live right across the street, so I go there all the time.
Yeah. I love the Living Desert Zoo. I think it's so well done.
Yeah.
And Dr. James is great at what he does, too.
Yeah.
I would love to do some more volunteering with them abroad. That would be cool.
Yeah, a number of my students volunteer or work at the Living Desert.
Cool.
We have a work experience program at College of the Desert where you can get credit for working or volunteering.
Oh, that's great.
And so the Living Desert's been one of those places where a bunch of our natural resources students go to get educated and maybe make a little money too sometimes.
Oh, that's a great channel into doing
experience. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Volunteering, doing something with natural resources and animals. And yeah, the Living Desert's a great place. They have that beautiful preserve behind the zoo too.
Yeah.
Go for nice walks back there. It's a little hot to go now, but because I know they have shortened hours in the summer. But for all our listeners tuning in, the Living Desert Zoo is great.
No, it's warm, but they're in their summer hours now, so they open at 7 a.m.
Oh.
So they're open from 7 to 1:30 throughout the summer, and so get there in that first hour. And it's really nice.
Yeah, it's great.
That's when you'll probably see me there doing bird walks. Yeah.
What kind of birds are you seeing when you're doing your walks at the Living Desert Zoo?
Well, this time of year, again, it's just those hardy desert resident birds. Migration's over. So we see verdins and Abert's towhees and roadrunner and Scott's oriole sometimes. And
any cactus wren?
Occasional cactus wren. They're not as common as they used to be. That's one of the birds you mentioned. Have I noticed any changes over the last 30 years? Not as many cactus wrens around like there used to be.
Yeah.
It seems like their range is contracting a bit.
Yeah. And are the cactus wrens, do they also live in Joshua trees?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that's one of the places you can kind of expect to see them up in Joshua tree. Usually hanging out in the parking lots, eating bugs off of people's car grills.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's funny. So one of my favorite birds is a hummingbird, and I know that there are hummingbirds in the desert. Can you...
Several different species.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the hummingbirds in the desert.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, the most common hummingbird, the one associated with the desert is the Costa's hummingbird. Costa'. Costas. And that's the one with a purple throat or a gorget. And they're here year round. Some of them are migratory, but others stay here year round. They're a little more common in the low desert where I live, down in Palm Desert, than they are in the high desert. But that's our desert hummingbird. And the other one that you'll see in the desert is Anna's hummingbird, which is more associated with people. So as humans have expanded into the desert, the Anna's hummingbird has kind of come along with it. It's not normally a desert hummingbird, but it's adapted to the desert because of the presence of us. So those are the two hummingbirds that are here year round, Costas and Annas. In the summer, we also have some black-chinned hummingbirds that are especially common at Big Morongo Canyon Preserve, just outside Joshua Tree National Park. And then in migration, we see the rufous hummingbirds passing through, kind of an orange-colored one.
Cool.
And those are the main hummingbirds that you would see in our area.
Are there any Allen's hummingbirds that you would expect to find?
No. Allen's would be very rare in the desert. They're more of a coastal bird, really common in LA and then they get as far east as, say, maybe Riverside, and then they really start to peter out after that. So don't expect to see Allens out here.
Good to know.
What makes hummingbirds like, a desert hummingbird or coastal or migratory?
Well, in terms of being migratory, that's in their genetics usually. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of born either with the urge to migrate or not. They don't get to sort of make a decision each year. Oh, I'm going to migrate. I don't feel like it. Yeah. So it's in their DNA, whether they migrate or not. So they know what to do. And those that don't migrate, again, don't have that migration gene. So they just stay put. Mm. In terms of the habitat they choose, again, that's part of their DNA too. Desert hummingbirds like the Costas hummingbird are adapted to living in a harsh desert environment. That's all they know. The Allen's hummingbird lives on the coast, in much wetter, cooler areas.
Where do desert hummingbirds tend to nest?
Well, their nests are made mostly of spider webs, so they can kind of stick those things anywhere. They just need a little branch or something to stick it on. But usually it's on a branch in a tree. Yeah. Or it might be on your wind chime or somewhere under your eave of your house. So you never know where they're going to stick that little thing. So just kind of watch where they go, and you can sometimes figure out where their nests are.
And what about roadrunners, since they prefer to run instead of fly? Where are they nesting? Is it low to the ground?
Roadrunners, they don't nest on the ground. They nest above the ground, typically about 4 feet, 3 to 5 feet above the ground in a dense bush, typically. Pretty big nest. They're big birds.
Yeah.
Sometime in a cactus, if that's the only thing around. But they probably prefer a dense hedge or something like Texas ebony. They seem to like that a lot.
Something that you mentioned before that caught my attention was when you were talking about bats with the wind turbines. How many species of bats are you seeing in the desert, and where are they primarily?
So all of our bats in this area are insect-eating bats, insectivores. We don't have vampire bats. We don't have fruit-eating bats, fish-eating bats here. All of our bats are busy eating insects, which is a great thing for us because, a single bat can eat thousands, and I'm talking thousands of mosquitoes every night. So we want those bats to be doing their thing and, keeping the skies bug-free for our own benefit. And so we should do everything we can to encourage bats and educate people to appreciate them. We've got about 15 species of bats just in our desert area, if you add them all up.
Okay.
And they're all insect eaters. And almost all of them migrate. They go south of the border for the winter, and then they come back here every spring and spend the spring and summer with us.
Okay. And where are they? I guess I don't know if nesting is the right word.
Roosting?
Yeah, they're going to roost, or I don't know if nesting is the right word either. But they're going to roost in caves or cliffs and crevices. Sometimes in buildings, if there's a crevice or a place to get in, attic.
Maybe under a culvert.
But usually, under a big bridge. Sometimes there might be some nooks and crannies in there. But they're looking for like a cave or a cliff or something. Mm. There's one species, though, called the yellow bat that actually roosts in palm trees. Oh. So it's another good reason, not to cut your palm trees like a lot of people do. Let that palm skirt form on the tree like nature has intended. And the yellow bats will appreciate that, too, because they can roost underneath those palm fronds.
Oh, okay.
And again, we want to encourage bats to be in our midst because they're going to eat all those mosquitoes that are buzzing around that we don't like.
Great. That's something simple that I wouldn't think of keeping those tree skirts, on palm trees, just keep them there.
Yeah, that's a big push that I make is to plant the right kind of palm. For one, that's the Washingtonia foliifera, the native California fan palm. and then to just leave the skirt on it. There's no need to cut it.
Yeah.
It's good for wildlife. It's good for the bats. It's good for the owls, which will nest there if you don't cut it. And owls can eat multiple number of rats in a night.
Yeah.
Another good reason to want to encourage owls to live in your yard and live in those palms. And then orioles, which everybody loves, are beautiful birds, will actually weave their nest behind the palm frond if you don't cut it.
Mm.
And so we want to encourage orioles also to be around. So leave those palms alone. We were talking about keystone species before. The California fan palm or desert fan palm is definitely a keystone species.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you could write a whole book on how many other species benefit from that palm tree.
Yeah, that's great to know.
If you don't cut it, that is.
Yeah.
Right?
Are they fairly easy to, plant?
Yeah. Yeah, palms are easy to grow in the desert. You see them all around, right? So just choose the right one. Choose the Washingtonia foliifera if you're just starting out. That's the only palm native to the Western United States.
Yeah.
And that's the one that has those beautiful skirts on it that you'll see at the Indian Canyons or the Coachella Valley Preserve or, Cottonwood and Joshua Tree. So that's the palm you want to plant, the one that has that big skirt on it and it doesn't blow off in the wind like it does on those other species.
Yeah. What kind of owls primarily are you seeing in the desert?
Well, great horned owl is the one and the barn owl are the two that would nest in a palm that's uncut. Mm-hmm. So those are our two most common species, barn owl and great horned owl.
Okay.
They're here year round. They eat rats and rodents. It's just great to have around. And occasionally you'll see a long-eared owl.
Oh, yeah.
Which looks like a great horned owl on a diet. It's kind of slim and trim.
That's a funny way of putting it.
So yeah, it's often confused for great horned owl, but they're slimmer and not quite as common, but they're around. So those are the main three. And then sometimes western screech owl, especially in the high desert, you get a few of those. Cute little guys.
Adorable.
They nest in holes, in cavities. So if you put a nesting box out for them, they might use it. The barn owl also will use a barn owl nesting box if you put it out. The great horned owl likes to build its own nest. It's more of a traditional platform nest.
And barn owls, are they the only owl that mates for life? Is that right? Do they mate for life?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, there's over 10,000 species of birds in the world, and some of them stick with their partner and others don't. It's so hard to generalize. Mm-hmm. But they can be faithful to their partners. The barn owl can, but if they lose their partner, they'll take another one.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know what mate for life means in that case, but yeah, they'll probably stick together as long as that partner is still around. Mm-hmm.
The great horned owls do the same, or are they more
monogamous?
Yeah, I don't have any data on that. I haven't really tracked it, but I would say in general, they probably stick with the partner if the partner is still available, but that can change.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say.
What about burrowing owl? Do you see any in the low desert around Coachella Valley, or is that kind of reserved for the Salton Sea area?
Well, the Salton Sea is the place to go, the southern end, if you want to see burrowing owls.
Right, in Brawley.
Yeah, they're there year-round, and in the winter they're joined by their northern counterparts who migrate down to spend the winter at the Salton Sea. So the winter's the best time to see them, but there's some down there all year. And they seem to be holding their own at the Salton Sea, at least. There's been a lot of education going on to help educate farmers to not plow over their burrows, their nests, and to learn to recognize where those nests are and try to avoid disturbing them. Because those owls are good to have around too, because they're flying around and eating a lot of crop pests for those farmers. And so they want to encourage those owls. And they've actually put up a lot of, or buried, I should say, a lot of artificial nesting burrows for these owls so they don't get crushed. And so some of the local Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts down there and other volunteers have been doing these projects to help encourage the owls and give them a safe nesting spot that can't be crushed by traffic.
That's great.
Wow.
So they're kind of holding their own down there. But in the Coachella Valley, you asked about that. They're few and far between. We've got some burrowing owls here that are kind of just hanging on, kind of on the fringes of desert hot springs and some of the farming areas down in Indio. You could still see one or two if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. But that's another bird that even in my 30 plus years here, it seems to me like they're not as easy to find as they were 30 years ago in the Coachella Valley, at least. And in the high desert, it's even worse. I mean, there's a few sightings, a few individuals maybe you could find up there, but they're not abundant.
In my experience with doing burrowing owl surveys all around Southern California, I have definitely seen the highest number of burrowing owl in the Salton Sea near Brawley.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Whenever I get assigned to surveys out there, it's like, protocol surveys start at dawn at 6 a.m. I'm up at 4 a.m. driving out there. And I'm excited because I know I'm going to see a lot of cool burrowing owl and other birds.
It's guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
I mean, you're going to see some. It's a question of how many. Yeah, it's fun.
I've never seen one. I want to.
We'll go on a trip to Salton Sea now.
You gotta go. They're there now too, even in summer.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you about that statement with not seeing them, or they're not as abundant in the high desert. I've done surveys for them in like California City, up in Joshua Tree, the Mojave Preserve. Like we were deep in the Mojave Preserve by Kelso Dunes. No burrowing owls in sight.
And they may have never been abundant in those places you just mentioned, but there certainly probably were more of them in the past than there are now. Yeah. I think that's always been a little bit on the margin of their habitat. They're not a desert species per se.
Sure.
But they sure love those ag areas.
Yep. Yeah, the kind of grassland habitat and agriculture areas is suitable for them because of there's not a lot of tall grasses in the way. So with that clearing outside of their burrows, they can see for miles. They can see predators coming, go in to hide, find prey easier. There's a nice preserve too. Go ahead. Well,
that's a bird if you track it on eBird, and you can look up any of these birds on ebird.org and see data that will show you probably a bird that's been declining throughout its range in the United States. Except for the Salton Sea.
Right. And in San Diego, there's a big effort to rewild them in Ramona Grasslands Preserve. There's a lot of good raptor habitat out there for them and the golden eagles out there too. But I think they're a candidate now to be listed as threatened, I believe, under the Endangered Species Act in California. But
yeah, maybe they're just a species of special concern at the moment. But yeah.
Yeah, they are just a species of special concern. But I think during the interim process, if I'm not mistaken, they're still protected as a candidate species while they're being considered for a higher listing, which I think they may have been approved to be considered threatened now. I'll have to double check on that, but yeah. Love the burrowing owls, though. It's probably one of my favorite birds in California.
And of course, all birds are protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So
yes, regardless of whether they're endangered or threatened. Yes. We love the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and we want it to stay, continue with those strong protections, because right now at the federal level, there's definitely some talk about reducing some of those protections, or I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on there, but it's another story. Yeah, well, the enforcement of those protections can be changed, and it probably will be for the next few years. And the interpretation of the act, can be looked at differently, and it probably will be for a few years, but the actual act itself isn't going to go away. Good. We need it to stay in place.
if somebody plants that type of palm in their backyard, their front yard, how many birds or bats, like in total, could one palm possibly bring into their backyard? So, you're seeing the bats that you're saying, the potential owls, the desert oriole, are all of these kind of living together in just one palm? Or is it sort of a situation where maybe you need to plant?
Well, okay. So one is a start, more is better.
Yeah.
And of course, you could wait a whole lifetime for it to mature and be huge. And, you're not going to have your own little 1,000 palms oasis overnight. So it also depends on how big the palm is to begin with. Fortunately, where I live, my house, I inherited 4 of these palms in the front yard that were already kind of big. But I got to work planting other trees right away, and now here it is 30 years later. And so those trees are pretty big.
Very
But
cool.
it's a project. It's an effort that can take some time to create a backyard habitat. It's a whole other topic. We could do a podcast.
Yeah.
But it's all about planting native plants. Find out what's native to your area. In this case, we're talking about palms, and that would be the Washingtonia foliifera. But don't just plant a palm. You want to plant all these other native plants too. All right. And then create a whole ecosystem in your yard. And then watch the bird diversity go up. Every year you're gonna chart more and more species. And if you keep track of the bats and other things, you'll find more of those hanging out too.
Yeah. And what are some other native plants that you have in your front or backyard that
Well, I started, it can be overwhelming to think of trying to redo the whole yard. And people sometimes get discouraged when they think about it that way. I say, take it one section at a time. So I started out in the front and I focused on creating a hummingbird garden, planting a lot of the native flowering plants that they would like tuberosa and fairy duster and other penstemons and, things like that, brittlebush for the butterflies. So I created a butterfly and a hummingbird garden, kind of a pollinator garden first. And then I put in trees first too, because I wanted them to grow big over time. And I couldn't afford a big tree, so I got smaller ones. So I want to get those in the ground right away so they could be big in 10 years. And they are now. It's been 30 years. But I planted Palo Verdes, and I planted sweet acacia, and I planted desert willows, and I planted mesquites and palms to start with. Texas ebony makes a great hedge, and it's a tree. So those are some of the bigger trees that I got in the ground right away. Some in the front, some in the back, some on the side of the house. And then I started filling in the rest, over time with other native plants, mid-sized shrubs, Tacoma, and things that the bees like, the native bees.
Yeah.
Some of the purple things, Texas Ranger. So, yeah.
Well, your garden sounds beautiful, and I love that you're giving our listeners, if they're living in the area, a game plan for their garden, maybe.
Yeah, and then just go to places like the Living Desert, and take your notepad with you. And as you walk around, note the names of some of these plants and say, oh, I want that one, and then go find them at your local native plant nursery. Like there's a great nursery in Morongo Valley, the Cactus Mart.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great place to find native plants. Right there in the high desert. You got the Mojave Desert Land Trust that has plant sales every now and then of the right kind of plants. Down here, you've got Macias Nursery down in Thousand Palms. And then people should head out to Sky Valley and go to the Desert Straw House Nursery.
Okay.
That's a place a lot of people don't know about, but Alicia can get you anything you want in terms of native plants.
Yeah.
If you plan ahead. It's called Desert Straw House.
Very cool. That's amazing. Even like what you said when earlier we asked about what gives you hope, like every little thing counts, and something like planting native plants in your backyard or your front yard, that counts. So
yeah, well, when you think about it, remember, habitat loss is like the main problem that all species are and birds are experiencing in terms of their decline. They're losing their habitat, right? And so if you can make your yard a wildlife friendly place, that's what we need. I mean, that's going to help. And you can do that right away, and you don't have to go anywhere. Just focus on what's in your own yard and do the right thing there. And if everybody does that, eventually we're going to create blocks of habitat that are going to be incredibly useful for migrating birds. But even birds will find your yard. If you're the only one in town doing it, they're going to come to your yard. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't it be great if all your neighbors did the same thing too?
Inspire a chain effect throughout the neighborhood.
Right. So you got to be the person who does it, and then you show the rest of your neighborhood, how great it can look and how much wildlife can be there, and they'll do the same. So that's what I've been working on.
Wonderful.
I've had over 140 species of birds in my yard.
Oh my God.
Years. I mean, not all at once, right?
But that's incredible, though.
But there's a lot of diversity that comes through, and then the word gets out. They tell their bird friends, and every awesome. Year more are coming.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and
kill your lawn.
Kill your lawn and plant native plants. And that's what it takes.
That's the latest campaign. I've been seeing it more and more online, people talking about killing your lawn and planting native. It looks cooler anyways. You just have this beautiful overgrown garden with pollinators and birds and
Yeah, I mean, 30 years ago, most of the homes on my block were lawns. Now there's not a single one.
Oh, great.
Wow.
There's 2 people with artificial lawns now, so I guess we don't count those. They still have to have their green, I guess, but it's fake grass now, and so there's good alternatives there if you have to have something green. But everybody else has changed over the years. It saves you money, and it looks good, and it's sustainable, and it's good for the wildlife and the birds
and the bees.
Yeah,
it's great. Well, thank you so much, Kurt, for coming onto the show and educating us on all things birds and desert land and renewable energies, everything. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a dynamic conversation.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Next time in Africa or the Salton Sea, and we can be outside. We like to do interviews outside too. So maybe one day we can go on a Planet People field trip with you to the Salton Sea. And
yeah, let's do that.
That would be really fun. Do some fun bird watching.
And I don't know if people inquire, I don't know how they contact you, but if they want to get in touch with me, you can give them my email address or whatever, and I'm happy to answer more questions, or they might have wildlife related questions, or wildlife making their yard into a wildlife habitat kind of questions, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm happy to answer.
Definitely.
We'll put your email in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always want our listeners to be able to find the guest right afterwards. So we put some detailed information in the show notes. And if your email is the best way, then that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Kurt. We really enjoyed the conversation.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And for our Anxiety into Action segment today, we really encourage you to educate yourself about different energy solutions, like maybe putting solar panels on your own rooftop, or advocating that places in your community use them rather than tearing out desert landscapes to build huge solar farms. There are better ways to be sustainable. And while it's not easy to be sustainable, life is not meant to be easy. It's meant to be sustainable. So educate yourself on those different energy solutions.
Yeah. And another thing is every action counts, like Kurt says. So do what you can to live a more sustainable life, whether that be planting native species in your backyard and creating an oasis for wildlife and also for yourself. It's going to be a much better experience than just going out to a flat lawn. No offense.
100% kill your lawn. I think that's probably one of the biggest action takeaway pieces from this episode is to plant native plants. And I feel inspired to do that after hearing how Kurt basically transformed not only his lawn, but the entire block. He influenced to help his neighbors build lawns or build a native plant habitat. And he said that almost no one on his block has some plain green lawn anymore. I mean, that's amazing.
That's such a good point. I mean, he's truly like a trendsetter in that way. You know, maybe you can be the trendsetter for your neighborhood.
I love that.
Yeah.
Be the trendsetter, honey.
Yes.
Yes. So kill your lawn and listen to this episode and learn about different energy solutions. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Planet People. We are thrilled to have you as part of our community of wildlifers who care about protecting the planet for future generations to enjoy.
We hope that by listening, you feel inspired to connect with nature and become a steward of the planet by getting involved and taking action with your local community conservation organizations. Until next time, stay positive, Planet People.
This episode was produced by Natalie Jean Sybil, Coral Carson, and Hugh Carr. Directed and edited by Coral Carson. Theme song by Hugh Carr under the artist name Flama. Thank you, team.